Live from Callaloo Studios in New York City, you are listening to Let's Take It Offline with your host, Kishshana Palmer.
Hey, Fab Crew. You're listening to Let's Take This Offline, the podcast for everyday leaders. Part inspiration, part sit down, let's have a conversation. Here's where you'll find the real deal about living well and leading well. I'm Kishshana Palmer, your host and resident leadership whiz.
What happened in the meeting after the meeting?
We talk about it all on Let's Take This Offline. Don't forget to subscribe, download, and leave a comment so we can keep the conversation going. Taneshia Nash Laird is a social change agent and community developer who centers cultural equity in her work. She is the president and CEO of Newark Symphony Hall, a historic performing arts center located within the Lincoln Park neighborhood of Newark, New Jersey. Since her appointment in November 2018, she has expanded programming to respond to community needs and announced plans to restore the 1925 vintage concert hall in a $40 million renovation and leverage it for neighborhood revitalization in a process she calls Symphony Works. Taneshia previously served as an executive director of the Arts Council of Princeton, notably as the first person of color in that role. She has also served as Director of Economic Development and Acting Director of Housing Production for the City of Trenton, New Jersey, Regional Director of the U.S. Women's Chamber of Commerce, and Executive Director of the Trenton Downtown Association, where she initiated Destination Trenton, an award-winning art and tourism program in New Jersey's capital city. Taneshia is an adjunct professor in Drexel University's Entertainment and Arts Management Bachelor of Science degree program. Widowed in 2013 and a Pink Lady Warrior since an early-stage breast cancer diagnosis in 2019, Taneshia is most proud of being a mom to aspiring ballerina and budding cellist Naima, age 10, and self-proclaimed future Dr. Imani, who in 2019, 2 months shy of her 13th birthday, played violin with her young orchestra in Sicily. All right, Fab Crew, we are back for another. Listen, y'all, I know I say fantastic, marvelous, amazing all the time. These are my words, but they're real. But this time I am so grateful to have in the studio today my good friend Taneshia. Listen, y'all, I get to call all of these fabulous, wonderful CEOs, okay, all of these thought leaders, great thinkers of our time, my friends. And so I could not be more pleased. When I wanted to talk about today's topic, I said, who can I call on the telephone? And Taneshia, you were my person. And so welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Absolutely.
You are such a superstar. And so, for real. I mean, anybody that listens to this follows you, I'm sure. And so they know what I'm saying is the truth. So thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
No, absolutely. And y'all, by the time you hear this, it's going to be, we hope, it's going to be a little springtime weather. It's going to be a little get cute. Even though get cute right now feels like a little bit of a lie, because get cute with a bedazzled mask still does not feel like get cute to me. Does it feel get cute to you, or are you making it do? What are you doing? Okay.
Listen, yeah, my masks are cute though. I mean, I got one to match all my outfits.
Yes. So. Okay. I was going to ask you that. Like, are you the matchy of the mask? Are you like, look,
I mean,
we're in these COVID streets.
If you have to do it, I mean, you want to look cute, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I have a whole supply. I'm ordering some for my team too. So we just talked about that last week. Some cute ones.
Oh my goodness! But y'all, when you hear this episode, make sure you just go right to the comments and wish her a happy belated birthday, because we are recording this on your actual birthday. And I am just so glad I get to spend even a moment with you on your next revolution around the sun. So I'm so glad that you are here in good health. Oh my goodness. And working. Okay. So can we talk about this? You do the darn thing. I have to say, every time I turn around, I'm like, boom, award, boom, panel, boom, another grant came in the building, boom, another donor. So tell folks a little bit about, we already heard your bio, so we know that you're thebomb.com, but when we break your bio down, like what do you really do day to day? Because you might say dishwasher, door opener, greeter, somebody mama too. Like you have so many roles, but what do you do in your role day to day? What's the essence of what you do?
That's such a great question. I like to think that I am using culture to bring so much to a community, the community economic development, wellness. That's what I like to say that I do. But mostly I feel like a firefighter all day.
Ooh, you are, I'm writing this down. You are a cultural firefighter.
Oh, I love that. I need to write that down.
You bet right now.
Okay.
I just wrote down that you are a cultural firefighter. Put that in the bio. Okay.
I think I might actually.
Please.
Yes.
Please.
Yes.
And when you think about the fires that you have to put out, like where do you feel like the ember is constantly burning that you have to come back to?
Oh my goodness, you are awesome. These questions are making me think so much about the work because the work is really rich, right?
Yeah.
So the organization that I took over, and as you know, I left another one that was from the outside. Some people said I made it. There were other people who said, "Why would you leave that Ivy League town and institution and move to the organization?" I think we actually might have had conversations.
We did. I was like, help me understand.
But now you see, right? The reward, the upside is so good. I mean, having successes at an organization that is already at, a high height, it's great, right? You feel good.
Right.
But there's a different feeling when you are essentially breathing life into an organization. And that's essentially what this was about. This was about going to a community of color, to an institution that was founded in 1925.
Yes.
That had really become part of this community in Newark, especially after the uprisings and white flight. It really became important to the predominantly Black and brown community. Right. And when I saw so much that was happening, we have an artist as a Mayor Raz Baraka. When I see the work that he's doing, which is amazing, and the people, there are things that are within his control, right? So, attracting new businesses, but there are things that are essentially out of his control that come with the success story of a revitalized community, and that's gentrification, and that's displacement. And he's doing a whole lot to mitigate that. But what I wanted to make sure is that taking over, and I know people think, isn't it just a performing arts center? Yes, it's a performing arts center that is the anchor, though, to the Lincoln Park neighborhood, which is essentially sort of the last downtown neighborhood that hasn't been really gentrified. And that is really what drove me, because I knew that if you do it in a particular way, you can make sure that the community comes along. I've been saying recently that I wanted to make sure that the revitalization of Newark Symphony Hall happened with the community and not to the community.
Absolutely.
Because that's an important difference. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's what I do.
I love that. And I feel like, when I think about sort of like my arts beginning, like, first of all, I am a fantastic artist in my mind. I want everyone to know, okay, I'm an artiste. But my instrument is my voice. And so even as a kid, I remember just early access to experiences beyond the church, right, and to theater and to all types of expression. And although other types of expression were in my particular ministry, in my mind they were, though I promise you, Tanesha, I was like, oh my God, I'm so gifted. I am not. But it was it felt like it was part of the sort of the center of my education. And I was so
Mhm.
grateful to have teachers who believed so deeply in arts as the outgrowth of all the other things we had to learn as opposed to an add-on. And so
Mhm.
even though I grew up in public school, I grew up going to public school, I didn't feel like I was lacking in things.
That's
I might have been, but I did not feel that way because I
that's right.
had folks who were just so committed to it as a part of the fabric of our community. And I wonder if that is not one of the things that kind of drives you every day, that there are not enough um, families and young people and folks who have that muscle memory and that lived experience of the cultural center being the one of the heartbeats of a vibrant and a thriving community. You
Oh
know.
no, absolutely. Absolutely. And you hit on it. I mean, it's funny because today I realize that I'm one of those people that does what I love both as my profession and even in my volunteer time. And it's because, I'm
Mm,
also president of a nonprofit arts
mm-hmm.
board. And I think I know which person it was. One of the team over there posted, happy birthday to our board president. And when I think about that, the fact that I'm able to do this both in the job for which I get, paid, I get paid for, but also my volunteer time as president of Rush Philanthropic Arts Foundation that has been doing this work for 26 years, it really is what drives me. It drives me because of the same reasons that you just said. I grew up impoverished in New York. I went to public school as well. But all of my arts experiences that my mom made sure that I was able to get mostly through community organizations. I got a few scholarships here and there to more quote unquote professional concerns.
Mm-hmm.
But mostly I worked with community arts organizations, whether it was for the visual artwork that I did, the singing, the dancing, and it just made me feel good. It made me feel seen. And I
Yes.
definitely think that that is what the arts does. And it's why I'm so passionate about it.
And I feel like we tend to and I use the word we with like a very broad brush. We tend to
Mhm.
skip over the arts. Like the arts is like a nice thing to have, or it's for those folks over there, or it's for folks who have leisure time, it's for those folks. But it's really for everyone. And the accessibility of it to me is so critical, but it's also what has you worn out and working all times of the day and night when you should be with those children or with yourself. Okay. And
Mhm.
so I'm curious, as we have stepped into yet another season where, in addition to um, our attention being pulled in every which direction, being able to focus on arts institutions, particularly as buildings are closed or they're not open in the ways they have been in the past, like where has your eye sort of gazed to? Are you looking at the leaders of other organizations whose missions may feel more palatable? Like, what the heck y'all got going over there? Have you had to rethink the way you lead, the way you are governing the work that y'all are doing? What has really made the ground shift, if anything, for you?
That's, again, great question. So at the top of the and we've been pivoting left and right, right? As
Mm-hmm.
everybody else is. We're not alone. Last summer, or I should say last spring, when this pandemic came to us, we were all, I'll never forget. I had just done a thank you leadership luncheon for my team because I had just celebrated a little bit more than a year, and they had just worked. They just worked
Mm-hmm.
their butts off,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
We, as I had said earlier, this is really an organization in turnaround, and in a very short period of time, we had turned around what was probably going to be again another in a series of years of deficits. We have turned around and had a really positive on the book in the black, but also the type of people that we had worked with. So it was a really successful year. Right after that, though, the pandemic hit and we went on remote work. And shortly after that, two staff members lost six family members between them to the pandemic. And this was just in the early days. We
Yeah.
were also trying to figure out what we're going to do because most of our employees are actually part time employees. And I like to think that it was important supplemental income in a community that already is a high trauma community. There is, again, unfortunately, nearly 1 out of every 3 people live below the poverty line. And so we were just facilitating food, but we believe it or not, food. And we also found out, thanks to one of my staff members, I found out that we had all of this, like a room-sized storage of personal protective equipment when everybody else was out.
Wow.
So we were able to, the hospital didn't have any, right? And so we were able to provide 9,095 masks, including, in addition to, hospital gowns and all these other things. What we found out is that after 9/11/2001, we were deemed an emergency triage location. So somewhere between 2001 and 2004, they had stored all this stuff.
That's
as
crazy.
Part of an emergency. I know.
They were like, if the apocalypse comes or something else comes again, we are prepared.
Right. We're prepared, right? So because we're huge. So just to give your audience an understanding, Newark Symphony Hall is 220,000 square feet.
Wow.
Our concert hall is 3,000 seats, a little bit under that. It was built for 3,000, but as time goes on, we've gotten a little bigger, so we also got the seats a little bigger. We changed out seats. The ballroom, though, is 1,500 capacity, and so it was all these different locations within this huge building were, set up to be these emergency triage locations. So anyway, I then, though, called on the artists to say, how can we make what we're doing an actual initiative of Newark Symphony Hall? So we created something called Embrace Newark, which we called an artist-activated wellness initiative. So it was giving out the personal protective equipment. It was giving out the food. It was doing the remote programming. Unfortunately, we had to move our Children's Performing Arts Academy, which is essentially our summer camp, to online. But every morning, you could come down to Symphony Hall and pick up a grab-and-go shopping bag of breakfast and lunch, enough for your family.
Oh, my gosh.
And so, right. And so those are the types of things that we did. And then eventually, unfortunately, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor happened. And so when I was talking to the arts community, I said, again, what can we do? And so we created Jasmine Mance, who is a superstar poet. She came on as our creative director, and she got 9 other artists, and they responded to the dual pandemics of COVID-19 and systemic racism with this archive called Symphony of Survival. That was video, photography from the protests, video from the protests, poetry, and we ended up not only having it online, but literally putting it in the windows of our building.
Right.
So you would see covered, so you couldn't even see any glass. We covered the entire glass, and we're a typical commercial building, so that means 14-foot high stuff. And it just was so striking to see Black Lives Matter on this 1925 building that when it was built, Black people couldn't walk in, right? It was not for us. So essentially what I'm saying is that we were, and I think other organizations too, were looking at ways that we could use the arts to, again, provide a source of comfort and wellness to the community when it seemed like everything else around them was just falling apart.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That just feels like literally the bat signal that just went out. And
For
it's
real.
so important. And, to me, that just feels like a flower opening up when you describe, your initial charge coming in to take the leadership reins for what this institution needed to be. And I would even say could be, because I'm like, no, you're like, this is pressing, this needs to be. And so for all of the amazing work that you're doing, I think that I'm curious about how that has lifted you, and also how has that really taken a toll on how you take care of yourself who you compare yourself to, what you wish you could be doing. Did you play the lotto? You know, like I have all of the questions, but seriously, like, what are some of the things that, you know, now keep you up at night because you have a pressing mission and need that you see just continue not to even be reactive, but responsive to community needs. And yet you are a human and you have needs.
I don't even really know how to answer
that. where did your mind go first? Oh, hell. No.
Pretty much. You know, self-care is still a work in progress.
Come on, talk about it.
It really is. And I think anybody that's listening, you know, we're all type A people, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I got to sit with that one.
Yeah, we can just sit with that. I know whoever is listening right now, if you're like, you know what, Kishshana, you know, Taneshia, we need to get up and go for a walk. You do. Pace in your living room right now. You know, pull a car over and just have a moment with yourself. We are, and it is a work in progress. And there's a whole industry built around us making us feel bad for feeling bad, you know.
It's true. It's true. You know, it's interesting because I was remembering some of the things that I did for the team that I'm reminding myself that I got to continue to do. So one of the other things that we did is we actually literally called in a therapist.
Ooh, talk about that.
Yes. There was so much trauma going on. Again, death, you know, death amongst the staff members' families, death of staff members themselves. Unfortunately, we even had one a couple weeks ago. And so we had a local therapist come in and do a group session. And then more recently, with that trauma, I encouraged the staff to take advantage of our health insurance. And I said, our health insurance right now is providing, I guess, telemedicine in terms of mental health with no copays. And I've done a few sessions, you know, is what I told them. And I said, you don't have to tell me, this is your privacy, but I really encourage you to take advantage of that. I hope that this is never repeated in any of our lifetimes. I keep telling my children that this is not normal and it is okay to not be okay. Yeah. But I have to continue to kind of tell myself that, and I kind of need to continue to practice what I preach a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
this is a confessional.
No, it's so good. But first of all, just shout out to you. And I hope that if you are an executive director, you are a CEO, you are a VP, a team leader, you are a people manager responsible for other humans other than humans who are in your house and yourself, that being able to tell your team members, and I don't have it perfect, but let me tell you about these resources we're about to action on today, is so critical, because it doesn't mean that work doesn't happen. Because I think that there has been this sort of like scale, like an either or. Either it's okay to do nothing, or do the most, and not like actually some of the goals that we need to hit still have to get hit. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to have the ability to access these resources. But also, we might have to think about how we get to them differently, and accessing those resources can give you the breathing room you need to do just that. And so there's a win-win in there that does not take away from team members being able to acknowledge and lean into the fact that they are human, experiencing ongoing trauma daily. And for some folks, multiple levels and different types and different shades and different decibel levels of it. And for others, maybe less. But also that as managers, there's stuff that we just have to be able to do when we show up for our people. And you're just modeling that, even as you're like, I have to sit with this, because that just means that we're still figuring it out, you know? And we don't have to be perfect. And I think that, you know, one of the things that I've seen, and you tell me this, because I know that you, you know, have a really tight circle of women that you run with who are other CEOs as well. And, you know, one of the things that I hear a lot is that this need to, one, be perfect. And then the other thing is that in times of crisis, folks typically look at Black women like, what y'all about to do? And even if they weren't looking at us, we over there working anyway, like, hey, and we were built for more
Yeah.
than work. So what have you been hearing and seeing? What are the sentiments of the women that you come into contact with around like what folks think they should be doing versus what we need to be doing?
You are 100% right. I mean, I think all of us, well, I don't want to speak for you.
Add me in. Add me in.
Yeah, we'll talk about this specifically, but this is not a good thing, right? It's not a good habit that we feel we need to save everything. You know, Black women, we come in and we're just saving stuff. And thankfully, I have you, I have other friends. We keep each other accountable. You know, I had a friend who messaged me today who said, "What are you going to do for yourself today?" Right? And then you said the same thing right before we started recording. She's like, "You know, you were saying, girl, go get that bottle of wine. You know, go get that cake." I got to, and that's part of the accountability that I need to also figure out how to do for myself. But yeah, we're all struggling. We're in this struggle right now of self-care. We're sending each other messages and sending each other little gifts, sending each other candles. You know, it's I keep having to remind myself and others this is not an everyday thing, you know, and it's on top of the already type A-ness that we had.
Yep.
So that you add the pandemic on top of that, and it's a lot. And I'm going to tell you that when that staff member who passed away recently passed away, I was not good for the day, and I actually canceled things. And I said, you know, it's okay to feel, right? Yep. And I had to tell myself that because I think I did tend to, and that was good modeling, I think, because after I did, one of my colleagues said, "Yeah, I want to take the day off." I said, "Take the day off." I said, "Take it off. We're all working from home anyway.
Right.
Take the day off." One of the things that I found during the pandemic is that people were actually working more hours.
Yes.
And so I had to actually, so before the pandemic, it was usual, and it's not good, but it was usual for me to send emails, you know, all hours. I intentionally stopped doing that when I saw the staff was doing that too. I was like, "What are you doing that for? Why are you working all these times?" It keeps my mind off. I'm like, read a book, go walk, do something. Don't dive into the work.
But work is my happy place. And so that's
you
would have gave me that advice and I'd have been like, sounds good. And I'd have just slid off with my laptop under my arm like, and something sparkly and I'm going.
Work is my happy place too, but we got to stop that. Like,
oh my gosh.
I have an accountability coach, a sister. She was an accountability coach. And from that, we decided that I was going to move where I was working in the house, that I had to move to a different part of the house because I had I have two daughters.
Yeah.
My daughters and I were at the dining table all together, and I was really doing that to keep them company, you know, but it was becoming a bad habit that we were like in our living space doing this. Now, my daughters have no problem shutting down school.
Oh my gosh, they are the funniest. My daughter be like, boop, boop. I already know what time it is. When I see her slide past my office, she'll peek in and I see her hand, "Ma, you on the phone?" And I'm like, no, and then her hand will just slide in and she'll pass me a glass of water with some ice.
Exactly.
And she's gone. School's over.
And they're gone. I had to stop working at the dining table. I had to actually go work, move to a different part of the house so that when I'm done for the day, closing my laptop, and closing the door.
Yes. The closing the door thing was huge. That's that thing. And didn't that, if somebody would have told you a year ago to get up and close the door, you'd have been, as advice, you'd have been like, "Where is my money? Let me get this refund. What is happening right now?" But like literally, that is literally transformative. Get up and close the door. Walk away. Someone needs to do that right now. Walk away.
Walk away. And you know what? I started sleeping better.
Woo.
And I didn't think it was, but I'm the person who would fall asleep with the laptop on my lap in the bed. Like,
oh my gosh, I have photos. Sheesh.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
One of my friends took photos of me with the laptop on my lap glasses
See what
to
I'm
the
saying?
side, nodded off. Okay. She was
We
like,
gotta
this is
stop.
ridiculous.
Exactly. We gotta stop. So maybe the only thing good thing that comes out of this is that we develop better habits, Miss Kishshana. I mean, like, we gotta develop better habits.
We have to, because we too cute to be looking old, because that's going to send us right to our early grave, and we can't go. I'm not ready. These kids, they got too many things to do.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back in a few.
Did you know women of color in the social sector are most likely to have an advanced degree, but least likely to hold a leadership role within an institution or organization? Instead, they are most likely to hold a line staff role with significant unseen barriers to promotion and advancement. A poignant reality is that most Black, Indigenous, and people of color in the social sector often work under a cloak of invisibility, which can make working relationships and progression a real challenge. This is one of the reasons why the Rooted Collaborative exists: to amplify and empower our female voices while providing community, culture, and coaching that honors a healthy career experience. The Rooted Collaborative is a global community focused on the holistic evolution and advancement of female leaders of color in the social impact sector. Our goal is simple. We will help you cultivate your unique personal, professional, and wellness goals that will help you design and live a purpose-driven life. With a growing online community that spans over 16 countries, including the US, Canada, the UK, and South Africa, we've learned a thing or two about building relationships that extend beyond borders. It's kind of our superpower. Don't believe us? Cool. Pull up a seat and get ready to be empowered, encouraged, and equipped for the life and the career that you deserve. Join the Rooted Collaborative today by visiting therootedcollaborative.com and click on membership so that you can join us. Don't forget to subscribe, download, and leave a comment so we can keep the conversation going. Now, let's head back to Let's Take This Offline. But the thing, Tanesha, okay, so the thing that, like, you say this and I'm like, okay, you're right. But here's one of the things that was driving me. And I have to keep talking myself off the ledge all the time. I just want you to know it's a work in progress. I'm not there yet. But I would see all these phenomenal women who were like kicking butt, taking names, shiny award here, new shiny job here, new deal brokered here, best year ever. And I'm looking around like, I am clearly not working hard enough. What is happening? And so the comparison gene for me, and I am, if you were to say like, can you describe Kishshana for me? I don't think there'd be very few people that would describe me, laissez-faire, takes it as it comes.
I was just saying this, you're the person that I look to, the way that you just said you were looking at other people. See, that's the problem.
Oh, that's
right?
the comparison.
Exactly. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, she's just killing it out there.
And I'm like, I am not. I have not won the lotto yet. If I win lotto tomorrow, y'all, I'm letting you know I'll quit this whole show. I quit everything. I'm going to be on a beach for at least a year, just thinking thoughts, okay? So now his education will be cared for, we're done, it should be fine. But I just want you to know, but other than that, but no, seriously, like I look at you, I'm like, what am I doing wrong in my life? And so then I want to close my laptop, but then I'm like, no, one more email, just one more post, one more task off my list, because the comparison is killing me, and I don't know if it's killing other people too, but I suspect it might be, because we're all paddling so hard underwater. What you think?
Oh, that is for sure. That is absolutely for sure. Because like I said, you're one of the people that I look at the way that you're saying you look at other people. I'm like, she's just out there. I need to level up because I clearly am just not doing it. I need to level up. But that comparison thing, we got to let that go too.
I mean, I wonder where it really stems from now, right? Like, because is there anyone at your back whispering for you to go harder? I don't think so.
So it's funny. I was actually speaking to a friend of mine, and he's older,
Mm-hmm.
And he's also not Black, and I think that also makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
But what he said to me was like cold water in my face.
No,
and
what did he say?
He said, Taneshia, you crave accomplishment. But he wasn't wrong. So that's why I said it was cold water in my face.
Any rights to say, don't you throw that water in my face.
But you know how but I'm glad he did it at the time he did it, because as you know, I went through a mastermind,
Mm-hmm.
and that mastermind, we had to put in what were our 30-day goals, our 60-day goals, our 90-day goals, and 180-day goals. And within the first 30 days, I actually accomplished my 60-day goals, right?
Whoa.
And it wasn't because my goals weren't ambitious enough, because that was one of the things that the mastermind's like, look, make sure these are real reach goals. So the old me would have been like, oh my goodness, I got these things in 30 days. I need to, and I was like, well, why can't I? No. He's right. I need to chill. And my coach was like, yeah, no, why do you feel you need to stuff more things in the box?
I would have totally been trying to stuff more things. I'd have been like, clearly these goals were not ambitious enough for me.
Right. That's what I had to stop myself, because the process was designed to make them ambitious goals too. But for the acknowledgement of that too, see, that's why that process was important, because if we hadn't gone through that process to make sure that these were ambitious, I would have been like what you said. But I had to face the reality that what was being said to me about craving accomplishment was true. And I could take that time that I would have spent adding new goals in there for self-care.
Wow. And getting yourself ready for the next lap of goals that you were about to step forward into, so you could do that well. Right. That's crazy. That's right. Craving accomplishment. And that craving accomplishment, I think that as you're talking, I'm sitting here, my eyes are closed, because I'm like, I'm just going to listen. I'm not responding. And what keeps creeping, seriously, because that's we were like, let me get in. I was like, this is double Dutch conversation. Okay, this is the best. But what was creeping up for me is that desire for accomplishment fuels the deficit feeling around comparison. And so the feeling around the comparison aspect then drives us harder to accomplish, so we can meet the comparison. It's wild, because at what point do you go, are these goals for me or for the other people looking at me achieve these goals? Who are the goals for really?
That's right. So I'm gonna, before I forget, because I just don't want to forget. I have another friend who is doing, and I don't even know if she realizes that I've been getting these good lessons from her, because she's also type A. But when I say she's had an incredible year, like the most amazing year, and she's a creative, she's an artist, she's a writer. And what she's done, though, is she got a bunch of awards. But for each one, she's like, okay, we're going to celebrate. And so she's taking time to celebrate. I never really do that. I realize.
Whoa.
I hope you do.
I do not.
Hope you do.
I do not.
Yeah.
I do not. I celebrate no things. It's so bad that in our first week of the podcast, we did ridiculously well. I think we ended up in like 135 cities and something ridiculous. I forgot what our stats are but it was wild, and close to 1,000 downloads our first week, which little old me. And so I was super excited, and also like, but about this 2,900 we need to hit in our first 30 days. Can we come on? Are we on the road? Are we on the way? And my whole team was like, because because I have two full-time team members, I have part-time staff, I have contractors who we work with on different projects. So everybody's in the Slack, going whoop whoop, like really excited about the work we're doing, and I'm the only one like So can you please update the numbers on that so it can reflect that this was our first week and not the whole launch? And one of my team members was like, "Ma'am, if you don't go sit down somewhere immediately," it's like, all right, I will exit the chat. And I had to exit the chat.
Yeah.
They told me I had to exit. I had to get out. They were like, "You are not allowed in here because you are negative Nelly. Bye." And I had to go sit in the corner because I was like, I'm not even celebrating that we actually did a thing, and that all things take time to grow, and that things get better as you grow, as we will too. And yet I was like, but it wasn't the blah, 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 So no, to answer your question, I don't. But however, whosoever and howsoever, I am learning that now, and thankfully the folks who are around me most actively, I have said loudly and softly, I've put it in writing, it's tattooed, that they can tell me to exit the chat at any time that I start to bring my foolishness around, which is a good push for me to start to celebrate. Or they can just plan the celebration, for God's sake.
I was just going to say, no, you just embrace the celebration.
Yes.
Don't exit the chat. Embrace the celebration.
You see how I was getting ready to leave? Let me go be miserable alone. No, embrace the celebration.
That's right. That's right. And that's amazing. I was, just for your audience to understand how amazing that is, I'm not going to name the name because it also sounds like I'm name dropping.
No, I love name dropping. First of all, I love that. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you that your first week downloads are more than a certain notable bold-faced name whose show I would semi-regularly guest on. I'll tell you later.
Right. But I was like, who? I was like, I'm going to go look.
Yeah. So those are great numbers. Those are great numbers. And you should really, really be proud. And you need to celebrate.
Shout out to the crew and the sponsors and our amazing guests. It's just, I just made a decision that I was like, you know what? I'm so lucky that I just happen to have some really dope friends and who are just really killing the game in their life and in their fields of work. And we get to have super dope conversations in our chats and in all the places and spaces that nobody knows. So we should talk about it. And that we're human. We're not superhuman. And I think that's even just us being able to talk about the fact that our daughters are modeling for us the things that we clearly need to get our lives together. For example, and tell me if this resonates with you. Yesterday, I was in the car with the Queenager and we were talking about, so she likes this particular type of taco and you dip it in what looks like a soup. What is the name of it? And she's not home right now. She dips it in it looks like a soup gravy, but it's like a clear broth thing. And she made us go all the way to Astoria once and stand online for 2.5 hours to eat at this one food truck. It was so good. It was so good. It was so good. And so she was letting me know that there's another place that opened that you can park and you don't have to do that, right? And so I say, literally that's without thinking, okay, great. So after we did after we each take turns on a Peloton, we should probably do 10 rides. And then that feels like it'd be a good treat for us to go do. And she immediately goes, so you are bribing me around food? Like food is a reward for working out? Like, do you hear how you sound, Mom? So I was quiet, right? And I was like, damn. I just ascribed all type of treats to food. that fat shamed myself, I did so many things that went through my mind. I didn't even know where to start. And I was like, no, that doesn't sound right. She was like, okay. And then that was the end of the conversation. I said, wait a minute. What if I said it did sound right? She was like, oh, we'd have had to have a different conversation. I was like, you are not going to son me, 15-year-old. You don't even you can't even take care of yourself. But her level of just being centered around just things that matter and values and not being, not even allowing me, her mama, who she spends the most time with, to shame her into something. I didn't even realize I was doing it. They just teach us so much stuff about not comparing ourselves and feeling good about ourselves. So I don't know if your daughters do that to you daily, but I know mine.
Oh, no, for sure. Yeah, I was just going to say for sure. First of all, I love your daughter. I love following her on social media. She's
I love you.
Gorgeous. Gorgeous. But Apple, you know what they say, Apple don't
Yes, come on, come
fall far
on.
from the
Ditto,
tree. That's
ditto.
right. That's right. Twins. But yeah, no, I'm gonna tell you, my youngest turned 11 3 days ago, and I said she has more social emotional maturity than I do. I was like, you know, she will. She understands what's important, and for her, fun. Fun is important.
Oh,
And
I love
so I
that.
look at that, and I'm like, yeah, I need that. She will, yeah, yeah. So my children, both of them, my 14-year-old and my 11-year-old, they are definitely, they understand priorities. Now, I will say my 14-year-old is probably a little bit more like me in terms of type A. They're both type A. It just manifests itself a little bit differently. And so I do try to make sure that she has balance. She's a workaholic. She is schoolwork, but she's a workaholic. She's a straight A student, and she really values that. And all honors classes. And this year, she got a B in something, and I had to kind of talk her off the ledge. And I'm like, "It's okay, girl."
Ooh, she need to hang out with my child for a little bit because Sanai's attitude, she's like, some days you get an A and, some days you
That's
get a
right.
C.
That's
And
right.
it's not just not gonna
That's
work out every time for everybody. Meanwhile, I'm like jumping up and down. Who do I need to speak to? Is there a teacher I need to email? Who do I need to get involved? And she's like, Ma, I'm gonna need you to relax.
exactly.
She's mastered
Exactly.
relaxing. I will tell you, there's
That's
no
right.
one who has done a better job of learning how to relax than my one queenager because
That's right.
her chillaxation is epic.
Yeah.
I do not know how to do it. She does not get that from me. She will be like, okay, we've been working for many hours. And she won't complain and she doesn't quit. She doesn't do anything. She'll just slide out. And you'll be like, where did she go? She's napping.
Oh, my children are dedicated to the nap ministry. Both of
How?
them.
How did they get this streak when I did not get it?
I, I don't. I can't. I'm too wired. No caffeine necessary for me to be wired. I'm like, they're
Caffeine for me is a
napping.
habit. It's not even for the caffeine. Napping. First of all, I just
Yeah.
want you to know that we need to have the founder of the nap ministry hang out with us. But one of the things that made me laugh about just the idea around resting is that rest even during this time has been elevated as such a performative thing,
Yes.
and that it feels good to say that we should rest, and saying it could feel as good as potentially doing it. And one of the things I read from her page the other day was that actually I need you to get behind the history and the science of being able to actually restore your body to do things and why. And for those of us who are in these leadership positions, our why evolves over the years, depending on what season of life you're in. And so when you are thinking about the season of life you're in right now, you stepping into a new evolution around the sun. You have seen bright days, you've seen dark days, you have growing beautiful children. You're in a new season of your life. When you think about like your why, what comes up for you? What do you think where's your center at now when as you're going into this next year? What are you thinking about?
Gosh, I mean, you're hitting me with all kinds of things today. I really, it's so funny. I'm gonna tell you, I did one small thing that is gonna sound crazy, but is forcing me to confront
Ooh, let me hear
all
it.
of your questions. I printed out it was a free printable of a calendar of the year, right? So
Okay.
that means just all the days on one thing. And I just start striking a line through the day. So today, at the end of today, the day's over, I'm going to strike the number 26 in February. What it forces me to do is to see how time is passing me, but also how much time is left, right?
Yeah.
And it's, in a sense, it's actually kind of grounding me because initially I would be like, oh, I got to do all these things. I got to do all these things. And so sometimes when I do it, I'm like, oh, wow, I went 3 days without addressing, X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
But mostly I look at it and go, man, there's a whole bunch of time left on the year for the calendar. So I don't need to be grinding. I mean, I feel like that was something I saw on the Nat Ministry page as well. Like, stop grinding. You're not a machine.
You're not a machine. You're not a porter.
Right.
Pestle and mortar.
That's right. But
We're not.
Are so wired. Are we not? Are we not wired to grind?
And if we don't, we feel like, I mean, first of all, some of us have had real consequences, to our day-to-day living. Back to your early statistics about the city that you are leading, this amazing cultural institution. But also beyond that like we just be making up reasons to grind. I mean, there's a whole school of thought around sleep when you're dead. No. Team no sleep. Also, no. Do you know what insomnia is like? It's terrible. Do you know what anxiety attacks in the middle of the night are like? Horrible. The answer is no. Get sleep. But this grinding that we are just so accustomed to doing, because there are points in your life, I know if you think about your life and your career, where being on that hardcore nose to the grindstone, even the analogies are terrible. If you close your eyes and imagine what we both just said, y'all are like, ooh, that doesn't even sound good. That sounds painful. It is painful. It comes at a cost. But it got you to a place, did it not?
It did. And that's part of the thing, though, that we kind of have to let go.
That's exactly it.
So, it's so funny because I still feel there's a lot for me to learn around certain aspects of my job, including fundraising, which everybody knows you are an expert in, right?
I try.
And so, no, you're absolutely expert. I'm so excited. One of my team members, my colleagues, is going to get to learn from you.
Woohoo!
Yeah. But I was talking to a board member about what we've raised. I've been there for a little over 2 years, and I have a big goal. So I'm still thinking it's a fraction of what I really want to raise. And then this particular board member said, Tanesha, in 2 years, you've raised more than we had before you got here in the past 10 combined.
Wait a minute.
And I was like, oh. Okay.
Meanwhile, I'm like, that's nice. See, you gotta celebrate that because you had a that's nice feeling just like me. I'm like, that's cute.
Well, I'm gonna tell you. Well, since you asked, I am gonna be honest with you and say the first thing I thought was that's not right. And I don't blame the organization. I blame systems, right? And I said that's not right. And then he and I said, but that shouldn't have been the case, right? You should have had a hearing with the fact. But he said, but you got to actually acknowledge what I just said to you. And I said, okay, I'm going to acknowledge that. And so that's the thing. Like when you have other people that are, in a sense, holding you accountable to not being on the grind, which again, it's like the inverse of what we're used to, right? We're used to other people being like, go, 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 go. This is a gentleman who has been around, who's seen lots of things, literally like, Hollywood. He's born and raised actually in Newark, but he's a Hollywood notable, I will say, and still is a professor actually right now. And when he said that to me, I realized, okay, I got to actually kind of internalize, but it's still hard. It's still hard.
It's still
to do
hard.
it. It's still hard to do that and to acknowledge because I'm so wired. My friend Gary said, you crave accomplishment. I'm so wired for accomplishment. And I still have to figure out, I have to sit with that and figure out where that comes from. Maybe that's something to have a whole therapy session about.
You're like, this is the work. As Mother Yana would say, this is your work.
Because people think that these kind of things, well, at least you're not being destructive to yourself, but actually it isn't productive.
Correct.
We have to change the way we think of productivity, I think.
Absolutely. And I think that the productivity aspect and what it means to be productive, we need to look at more than just, is the task ticked off our to-do list? Yes, no. And there might be some satisfaction in that particular aspect of it, but it's like, in relation to what and for whom? And were you the best who that should have been doing that thing? And if not, how can we get the right who's with you to do those things? And if yes, you sure? Particularly if you are a leader in your organization, because oftentimes as we rise through the ranks, the things that got us to that rank aren't going to be the things that elevate us in that rank or get us to the next thing. And our skills have to evolve. And therefore, the habits that go along with those skills have to evolve too. And sometimes that means letting some stuff go. And sometimes, you're right, Taneshia, it does mean a therapy session or two, because we got some stuff that we have to deal with that, you know? But you spoke all types of truth. It's so good. So, okay. So I got a couple of tidbits from you. One of which is, I'm going to get a calendar. I was like, oh, I know I'm going to get one. Because
I'm going to email it to you.
Yeah, because that's incremental success for me. Oh my gosh. I'm like, can I win the day? How do I win the day? Did I sleep today? Did I work out today? What did I do today? Did I drink water today? And so I love that idea. Well, listen, you and I could talk forever. And people, I'm sure, are going to have all the questions. That's what's been happening to us for the last 2 seasons. Folks send in more questions about our guests and things they want us to come back and talk about. And I'm sure this will be no different. So we want to make sure we get you back in here in the summertime, and we get to hang out and hear how you have been able to continue to grow in your birth year of this year, and in your leadership. So thank you so much for coming to hang out with me.
Thank you for the conversation. This was really great.
Yeah, always, always, always. Well, listen, y'all, this has been another great episode, and we just could not be more grateful to you and for your leadership, and for your words. And so I know folks are going to keep winding this back to get some nuggets. And y'all, Fab Crew, will be talking to you real soon. Love what you heard? Found a little nugget, but need more? Head on over to kishcamp.com, my masterclass for managers who are ready to do things differently at work and grow their skills so they can lead with confidence. It is so darn easy to get into the Comparison Trap Awards. But my real trap? Needing outside validation for my work and accomplishments. But if you allow me to say a little word to you that I heard, and then I've been whispering to myself every day, this quick lesson is for you. If you are at capacity, dear leader, then your organization is also at capacity. If you don't think you're enough, you'll keep doing more, you'll exhaust yourself, and when you're depleted, you'll head into survival mode. Once you're there, your organization, your team, you will all be there because you are on, air quotes, push through mode, which can look like an increase in unhealthy behaviors, innovation tossed out the window because every decision you make feels critical, your turnover increasing because anybody got time for that? I'm out. And your clients or customers will not be happy. Enter low satisfaction, complaints, returns, you name it. So you owe it to yourself and to your team to thrive and not just survive.